будем обсуждать Python, open source и библиотеки. Выкладывать или ложить. Если ложить, то куда? Если не ложить, то может все-таки класть. А если класть, то под какой лицензией? Что делать с pull-реквестами? Что делать с потоком фичи-реквестов? И другие очень важные и интересные вопросы. Так как часть экспертов англоязычная, we will hold this discussion in English. If someone, for example, me or one of experts will fail to express himself or herself, feel free to wave your hands like, guys, we can't understand you, please speak slowly, or switch to some other English, for example, Russian English, and we will try to adapt our speech. During discussion, I will try to engage you into the process, so I will hold you a microphone so you can ask a question and participate. We have 1 hour. We have lots of questions to discuss, so it will be a very strict time limit. And if you want to ask something, be prepared for 30 seconds. Nothing more, because in such discussion it's very common to stand up and not ask a question but express your opinion for 10 minutes. Unfortunately, right now it's not acceptable because we have 1 hour for entire event. So be right here in 1 minute. Get ready. My name is Grigory, I'm a math scientist, and I create software for slightly less than 20 years, not including overtime. I do software in C++, in JavaScript, in C#, in Python, in all modern programming languages, and right now I am technology evangelist at Vox Implant. We do cloud telephony, we have some Python for internal scripting and testing. My full-time work is to speak with developers and to show them how web developer or backend developer can make phone calls, automated phone calls, in just a few lines of source code with web service. This requires lots of communication, lots of meetups, lots of teaching, so I have like community building and communication expertise. And now our experts will introduce themselves. Please.
Thank you. I'm Jackie Kazel. Some of you who were here in the previous talk might already know me, but I work for, in my current job, I work for Capital One as a technical fellow working on some of their open source projects. And in my previous job, I worked on open source initiatives for the US government. I also do a lot of work in the Python community with the Python Software Foundation and PyLadies. This is teaching classes and so on and so forth.
Hello, my name is Armin Ronacher. I do Python open source software for many years now, mostly web related. So I made the Flask framework, changed the template engine, and a bunch of things in that ecosystem. I have worked with sort of larger scale backend systems for a gaming company before, and now I'm spending most of my time working on Sentry, which is an open source project which also has a business attached to it. So if you, it's like basically 100% of what you can run yourself is also what we run other than billing code and so forth. So we are a full business that actually has not just small part of it open source, but the entire part of it is. So you can even go to our internal bug tracker and see what's going on there.
Hi, I am Misha Korolov. I am a Scrapy team member, an OTK team member, and I have my own open source projects like Pymorphy. I work at Scraping Hub, and at Scraping Hub we try to open source almost everything.
Andrew Sitlow. I started to use Python in 2000. Since 2012, I'm Python core developer. But last years, I got started on async.io, IOHTTP library for asynchronous programming and other related libs.
So, who do we have here? Three very popular Python libraries, one community expert and one communication guy. And we will discuss open source Python libs. Before we discuss them, we need to define what open source is. Because term is a little not very clear, but it has official definition and still it is not very clear. It is free software, it is open source software, it's public domain, it's different kind of licenses. Basically, we will discuss a public domain kind of open source software. When you put source code into public domain and put no restriction into usage. Like, where is code and run away, or don't run away. Is it correct? Okay, perfect. And first question on our schedule will be why to put Python libs and Python project into open source. What are pros and what are contras? What are good and what is bad into putting your source code into public domain. And right now our experts will share expert opinion. Please, 1 minute, what is good in putting code into open source?
Okay, good. You get to share the financial burden if you get collaborators with you. I would justify that it also can increase security because people are going to point out bugs. And yeah, I'll stand on those for now.
Okay. Financial questions, security, code review, something else. Anyone want to add into this definition, please?
So I actually think that for the most part you can't really avoid open sourcing things at this point because the expectation is that the library is open source. So I am actually challenge people to make a commercial library for Python, which gets close to the same popularity as something that would be open source with no strings attached. And because of that, I actually think that you should just not think so much about how you or should you open source something. Just standard expectation is if there's a library and it will be used by multiple people, then just open source it and separate it very clearly from where you actually make money in the company, which is usually something else anyways.
Marketing opportunity? Yep, please.
Well, another reason is that sometimes you have an idea and you think you find the best way to do something and you want to use it, and you can use it if you change jobs, if you open source library, and well, it just feels good to make something good.
I just enjoy making software and sharing my software with people. It's fun process, and also if I make my library open source, it has a huge, maybe not huge, but much more users than closed source software, and I really need feedbacks from users. It's cheap way for getting feedback.
Sounds very good, isn't it? On love, happiness, and unicorns. You put your Python libraries into open source, you do social responsibility, you receive free feedback from your users, you receive free testing, you can use this software for marketing, people search for bugs in your software. But do you know that our brain have much more neurons that reacts on negative feeling? And right now we will see, is it something bad in putting Python code into open source, or it is as simple as you have Python library, put it into open source. So bad things. And maybe any of you want to start with bad things of putting software into open source, please.
Hello, thanks for coming. Recently there was a tweet which says sometimes your users expect their customers and now pay money to you. What you can you put some comment on this point?
То же самое, но по-русски.
Недавно был твит, который говорил о том, что твои пользователи open source думают, что они...
Okay, sorry, my English sometimes creeps me. So the first point, if we put software in open source, we will receive a huge stream of user requests. If our software happens to be popular, users will request features, and users will request features more compared to commercial software, because for commercial software only limited amount of users who actually buy you will request features. And for open source software, everyone thinks that it's free, so I will request something from these mad guys who put it into free. Okay, and we will discuss the endless stream of features a bit later. Another bad things about open sourcing, please.
Often it's free. I mean, it's not payment paid work. Also, your library should be ready for open source. You cannot just put it on GitHub and publish on PyPy. You should create documentation, tutorials, examples, and communicate with users. It takes time. It's not bad, but it's game rules.
Exactly, more work and company reputation at stake, because if you put some shit code into open source, people will learn it and will Twitter like, wow, this company, they look so great, but they put this into open source, how we can trust them? So if you are a company and you want to open source something, you need to ensure quality. Some more bad things.
Well, I agree with Andrew that maybe the only bad thing is that you will have to talk to users. You will have users, and so to talk less to them, you should create unit tests to ensure quality. You should create good documentation so they don't ask you many questions. So that's it.
Oh yes, documentation. Please.
I actually don't really think that there's any negative things about open sourcing something. I mean, personally, I would say it like this. I draw a clear line where something is open source and where something is not. Like if, say you have a business, and that's sort of the assumption here, that there's a part of it which makes money, and that part will have to work in isolation, and just ignore the open source part for a moment. And you just make sure that that part works. So you need to make money, you need to have a business, so that part is is a separate thing. And usually I would say that the parts which are very important for a company, you don't really consider for like forcefully open sourcing anyways. Some companies can do it, others can't. But so ignoring that part, which I don't think it's necessary to discuss anyways, all the other things, there's no reason for not open sourcing it. Like the worst case scenario is that you will have users and they will complain, but then you just ignore them. It's perfectly reasonable because you have to assume that if you didn't open source in the first place, then that's a problem we didn't even have. So like you can always revert back to just open sourcing it and just let people be very sad in your bug tracker and ignore them. I mean, that's still much better than not open sourcing in the first place. So I really don't see anything negative about it. Like if the expectation comes that you have to do documentation, that you have to do like higher code quality, then that actually just means that finally someone can read in your company what your library actually does. I have seen in-company code which was never documented, and then when someone finally decided that they're going to put it on PyPI, all of a sudden people in the company understood way better what it actually did because there were clearly defined interfaces, there was a documentation for it. I don't actually think that that extra time invested in documentation was a downside. I think it's just reasonable. So I really don't subscribe to the idea that there would be anything negative in open sourcing something.
Oh, I will try to change your mind a bit today. Please, anything else negative as a community expert?
I agree. I don't think there's anything negative in open source either.
Okay, let me suggest something to you, one interesting thing. Do you know about GSM modems in your mobile phones? All modems are closed-sourced firmware. No one open-source firmware exists. Why? Why don't we put it into open source? The question is tricky and counterintuitive because of the patents. If any one company release a GSM modem firmware into open source exactly the same minute, hundreds of companies will sue for broken patents. Because in this industry, everything is patented. So companies basically were forced to keep their software closed source, because if they open them, they will have very huge problems in court. What do you think about patent issues? If you open source some of your internal code and suddenly 10 or 20 patent trolls arise like, wow guys, you use algorithms and you see we have patents for these algorithms in all these countries, please pay us $1 billion.
I've never personally encountered that, so I would love for that to happen, because that would be an interesting experience. But
Indeed.
But you know, I think part of this too is with respect to the closed source example that you gave. I think that falls, I would classify that as part of the sort of intellectual property issue of stuff you would not open source.
Also, in regards to this GSM module thing, I would say in the scale of things that you can open source, anything that sends signals is very far on the side of problematic. And I know that there are, so I need to go a little bit further because I think it's an important point. We have regulatory bodies in almost all countries. In particular in Europe, in Russia, in the United States, there are these government bodies which regulate which frequencies you can send on and what you can do on those frequencies. And this is a shared space, and we have to really agree on what those things do. So part of the reason why GSM modules are not open source typically, or probably not at all. I know that OpenMoku tried to open source a GSM module at one point. It's not so much that they are afraid of patents, because there's actually fairly good legal background that you can actually open source something which has patents on it, because just the ability to see the source code doesn't infringe on them. It's the distribution and it's the in regards to if something actually is a problem patent-wise is a much more complicated topic than if there's an open source license on it. But so I think that there are certain things where people have to understand that there's a difference between open source and shipping something as open source. The common case obviously is anything that sends signals. Very often you will not get the permission to use a certain frequency band if an end user has the ability to change the software that runs on it. The same thing applies to GPS modules, I believe. Also, there's a big discussion in the free software community in regards to cars and GPL, because the GPL sort of in newer versions requires you to be able to actually upload your own code on it. And both the car industry and the regulatory bodies don't like the idea of users putting their own code into cars because of very good reasons. So I think it's important to make a distinction there that it's nice to have something as open source, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you as an end user or someone else should also inherit the right to then run your own software on it. Because I think it's certain things it's very good that they're regulated. And I like, as a driver of a car, I like that other cars on the road have some regular checkups, permits, and run things that not some hobbyist programmer decided to put into his car.
Thanks. So basically, if you are Yandex, it's better not to open source your search algorithms. And if you are software developer or manager in a big company, before making a decision to open source some of your libraries, it is very good to consult your legal department if you can open source particular code, or there are some patents or regulations pending. Otherwise, except for huge amount of work and community building, it is always good to open source your software. And the second question we want to highlight is about license. Yes, because of course open source is public domain, you put code to the public and run away as fast as you can. But still, if you don't leave any license, then actually code is not open source, because if no license is attached, no one can use it. So, what license do you put into your open source code, and is it something that we need to know before doing it? Please.
I use Apache license just because Python itself is Apache compatible, and people suggested me to switch from MIT to Apache, but I don't care too much. I know people don't like licenses like GPL with restrictions, so just I choose most open, most permissive license, and that's it.
Any other hints or insights about licensing, please?
So I think there's a website called choosealicense.com, which is something that I often use as a quick reference. I do Apache as well, but my library is not, it's my personal library, it's not for a company. My previous employer was the US government, and we would do Creative Commons, basically taxpayers paid for it, so it should be out in the open because taxpayers paid for it. But one of the things to consider with licenses is how your project depends on other projects, which also have licenses, and those licenses need to be taken into consideration for the permissiveness of the ability to use your project.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I see licenses as on a very complicated way, but the simple one is that I think a license is only as valuable as your enforcement of it. So in particular, there are provisions in licenses that I know are completely irrelevant because I would never go to court, which is why I basically ended up with BSD or MIT, because they are as bare bones as it gets. There's also an agreement sort of in international, it has been sort of at least agreed on in a not so legal sense, that if people contribute to your project, they implicitly accept the license of the project. So if it's BSD or MIT, then yeah, you can just get as much as you want from other people, and you end up with an end result which makes sense from a licensing point of view. It gets a lot more complicated if you have licenses with more restrictions. In particular, if I would use GPL for my software, it would automatically degrade into something that is not GPL if I wouldn't enforce it. And I don't have time, I don't have money for enforcement of licenses, so I just go with BSD. Also, just a quick note, Apache is a really nice license. I would like to use it. Whenever I use it, people complain. And the reason for it is that there is a lot of GPL2 code out there, which is incompatible with Apache. So that's the reason why I don't use it.
Meet BSD, Apache, everything except GPL. But there are cases when GPL is useful. Actually, lots of open source projects utilize so-called dual license scheme. When they open source with restrictive license like GPL, but for some amount of money, they provide you commercial license, the open source code can be used in closed source commercial project. What do you think about dual licensing your software? Is it something that you need to think from the beginning? Or, for example, if after a few years of evolution your product is popular, you can switch Rails and change from Apache to dual licensing, for example. What do you think?
I have a very controversial opinion about dual licensing, because for me, dual licensing is always only with GPL. Like everything else doesn't make sense. And I think dual licensing with GPL is sort of a get out of jail free card, because you can do a lot of horrible things and people will still support you because, oh, you're supporting like free software. Basically, it's if you do dual licensing, the only way to do it is with contributor agreement. So everybody who contributes to your project has to give up all the rights, or at least it gets complicated international anyways. But in particular, they don't contribute to your software as GPL. They contribute on it as a license, which allows much more, and then relicensing through the actual copyright holder, which puts a lot of power behind the original creators of the project. A good example is MySQL. MySQL is, for all intents and purposes, a GPL project. And also the drivers, I think, used to be, or at least still are. At least they used to be, I don't know if they still are, GPL. And what happened is that at a certain point, Sun bought the project, and then Oracle got it, and then one of the original creators really didn't like it and wanted to make his own version of it, which ended up being, I think, MariaDB. And they realized they can't make a commercial offering because they can't provide, like people will not pay for a GPL driver, and they themselves don't have the ability to make a commercial version of it. So they actually went back to MySQL 3 days when the driver was still BSD, and they had to start like years in the back to start a driver from whatever was there originally. So I think it's a very shitty way, to be honest, to make, like, you might as well at that point say, okay, it's proprietary. Because you just put a lot of, you give away the idea that this is actually something that is an open source project, when in reality it's very restrictive. Many people use it without realizing that they're breaking the license. And if you ever get in disagreement with whoever holds the copyright, you kind of screw yourself over. I know a lot of projects, like Sapien is another one, where they started out with GPL and now they have this huge file and the things we need to rewrite before we can make a commercial versions of it again. Because whoever owns the GPL, whoever owns the copyright of the code now is not any of the developers. I think it's like a consortium somewhere in France which doesn't care about the project anymore. So you can really get yourself in a situation where it's very hard to recover from. And also, I know VLC had a similar problem where they ended up in sort of a situation where they couldn't get out. And because of that, I strongly discourage people to do a licensing unless they are 100% sure what they're doing. They have a lawyer. They know that they will keep a lawyer for the next 10 years, and they will enforce it. Otherwise, it's just a major pain and a huge minefield.
It can be a very huge pain. Just remember the latest Express.js story. By the way, you mentioned the problem with pull request. If you want to use some dual licensing or GPL license, yes, you need to ensure that your contributors somehow gives you all the rights to source code they contribute. And for my knowledge, open source projects, they have actually free ways to handle pull request. Yes, first way is very simple. Pull request is just accepted if project have license like Apache, for example, and then you will not be able to change it into GPL later because you have derived work and you need to ensure that all your contributors accept the license change. Am I correct? Somehow. Second, you just ask every a contributor to sign an agreement via PDF, for example, or via email, or somehow implicitly by just contributing to your project. And the third way, with a small fraction of open source software do, you do not accept pull request. Instead, you look into pull request and recreate all the code by yourself. This way, you remain all the rights, and same way, you can accept some ideas. What do you think? When we put some code into open source, do we need to do some special work with pull request, some agreement, some implicit agreement, or just accept all pull requests and don't care? As a community expert, your opinion, please.
So I'm under the school of thought of the pull request. Somebody is consciously submitting the code, and they're giving it to you so that no explicit agreement or assigning needs to happen. I've seen that one of the major things that I have to go through on my project is to fill out like the changes file, because people don't do that with their pull requests. And adding an explicit signature is just going to give them one more thing that they're not going to do, that then I'll have to go, but you have to get a response from them, and it creates a difficult process.
I remember times when Python had a strong procedure for accepting patches. You always need to print license, sign it, scan, send email, and only after approving, committers had a right to accept your patch. It was very frustrating and annoying to become a contributor. Now it's switched to electronic form, and it's really easy. But the best way to don't make offenses in contribution. really hard to become a contributor into other library, and better to have no any barriers on this way.
Well, I agree that the best way is just to merge pull requests and don't care about licenses. But I've seen one case when this didn't work out. It is TQDM package, is a popular progress bar package. I think it was MIT licensed, but then some contributor sent a pull request, it was merged, and he sent several other pull requests, they were good, they all merged, and then after some time he said, oh, I didn't use MIT license for my pull requests, and the whole package had to change its license. So at first they wanted to change it to LGPL, but then after some discussion we have persuaded the pull request author, so it is now Mozilla public license. Now uses Mozilla public license. So this is
Yes, in our modern world, licensing hold its place. Anyone have like stories, comments about problems with open source and licensing that you have in your personal experience, which is what discussing. 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that nowadays there are services that actually integrate to GitHub for that. I believe I've seen that on Grafana, for example. Yeah, so when you create a pull request, there is a bot that comes to the pull request, to the comment, and it puts a badge that explicitly asks you to go to some web page, to sign it, to agree that you are forfeiting all the rights. And when you're done, the badge changes, etc. So just like a CI thing or something.
And does it hold any legal power or just a fancy badge?
In US, I believe it does.
It's very impressive. So one more point to use GitHub with all of its integrated services. And by the way, why do we need all these licenses, GPL, dual licenses, and so on? To make money, of course. And right now we're going to most fun and interesting part of our discussion, how open source can contribute to making money as a personal project, as a company project, as a community project. What are ways, what are pros, and what are cons? And your personal opinion, your personal stories is very important. And yes, I think you have the right to start this part.
So I have a bunch of open source projects which don't make money, are not supposed to make money, and have zero plans of making money with them. All the libraries in particular. I don't see a way to make money of it. I find the discussions about making money of it, to be honest, quite boring, because I just mentally I accepted this. This is not a business, and that's the end of it. On the other hand, we have Sentry, and Sentry is a business. And Sentry is different because it's an application, it's not a library. There are some libraries which I guess you could make money off in some circumstances, but I have zero experience on it, so I'm not going to have a conversation about this. But Sentry is interesting because it is an application you can install yourself on a server, and it will do its job. And the way it functions, 100% of it is also what we sell to users. And the question is, why would someone pay money for running it compared to running it themselves? And the reason for it is that it just, if you consider it, it makes a lot more sense for us to run it for you than you have to run it yourself. So we don't even see the open source model that we adopted for our software as relevant to the business, because we know where the money comes from. If it would be open source or closed source, doesn't really have an impact on that part. And we actually can take advantage of being open source. In particular, one very common case for us is that we have a developer, like a theoretical developer, who starts using Sentry. He installs the open source version in the company, They run it for 2 years. It becomes very useful for them. And then two things happen. The developer leaves is step one. He goes to the next company and says he has used Sentry in the last company, but he doesn't want to run it himself. He just say, give them a credit card and let them run it. So we already get money from that part. The second thing happens, the guy left, so someone else comes in and they still have running Sentry there, but they don't know how to maintain it, so they would just pay us money as well. So we convert open source installations into paying customers that way. So it's a very good way for us to get into a company and sort of penetrate the market in a way. And then eventually, later on, it converts into paying customers. And that gets us into places where many other companies can't, because they need to have a sales team, they need to convince them to dish out a bunch of money. So that actually works really well in our favor. But I think it's something that works much better for software as a service businesses than it would work for many other things, I guess.
So this is, one second, very strong and very popular point to make money from open source software. You just create a cloud version of your open source software and basically sell it. And when the open source version that you have on GitHub, that is popular, is used to promote your cloud software. You can even do a tricky things that lots of companies do, like, for example, open source version of GitLab. It is very, very popular, but they have enterprise version, which is absolutely the same as open source version with few valuable additions, which are closed source, of course. So you can use free version, you can pay for cloud version, or you can buy so-called enterprise version with additions. And GitLab is not the only company that utilizes such business model. VirtualBox, virtualization software, for example, it's absolutely the same. Completely free version and enterprise version with additional features. But is the Cloudify, your open source, the only way to make money, or there are other ways?
So, so I have two examples. With the library that I'm building, I've already had individuals reach out to me in order to possibly accelerate feature sets. So the addition of adding GIS, which means then to accelerate it, it means possibly acquiring money to do that. That was an unexpected result. And the second example is, and I can't quite remember the specific library, but there was a gentleman two gentlemen who worked for the federal government, and there was an open source library that they worked on, and then they left, they started a company, and then they sold that as a service to the states or cities, to smaller municipalities, because there were similarities in the services that the federal government needed to offer and then the states.
Consultation, patches, and all this work that author can do the best just because he created the open source software. Any other ways? Please.
It's funny, but I have a stipend for working on open source. Also, I had an agreement with my employer to spend 1 day per week on project of my choice. You can imagine what it was. It was my libraries for sure. Also, yes, consulting, like architecture, security review, or sometimes people pays for fixing bugs or implementing some feature. But all these payments, like consulting, like bug fixing, is not regular ones. It's happens time to time, and you cannot rely on it.
Yes, you can ask your company to provide some benefits for hard open source work, especially if it's part-time or overtime. And there are lots of companies that support open source with license and so on. Colleagues, maybe any question about making money with open source that you long wanted to ask but was afraid? Do not afraid now. Ask, please. No one? Okay, and when I think we will travel into another controversial flame-generating topic about user feedback. Because when you open source something, you have no users, you are sad, your new amazing projects that have zero feedback, but in case it will be popular, it will be hell amount of responses. User will report bugs, report features that look like bugs, report bugs that look like features, they will demand features, they will argue about architecture, and you will be flooded with user feedback. How you can handle it and how to prepare for user feedback, I think, please.
Well, the easiest way is to create small, very small libraries with nothing to add.
But it will grow eventually.
I believe the only way to maintain popular library is growing your contributors, amount of contributors. If you're not alone, everything becomes easy. Also, I love and I encourage people to make not feature requests, not issues, bug reports, but pull requests with tests and documentation updates.
Yes, and as a community expert, I think you have a lot to add outside of your speech, but maybe some important parts of your speech, because not all guests was.
Sure. Transparency. Let everyone know what you're doing, and that way you can say, thank you for your request. Please read this document. You'll find out where we're going next. Furthermore, obviously, engage and listen to your users. But if you have 50 tickets and they're all reporting the same bug, you can say, yes, we recognize that bug, so on and so forth. Growing the contributor base, I agree that as well. I think it's actually a great way for people starting out in open source to get involved, because you don't necessarily have to understand the code base, but you can start understanding some of the problems and features and curating that, making it easier on others as you start to understand the code base.
About amount of bugs, if not a secret, your top open source project, how many open issues does it have right now, and what do you feel about it? And most importantly, how will you handle them?
I don't think you should ask me about open source project maintenance, because I'm not doing a particularly good job at this. I'm pretty sure there are way too many bugs on there. I look at them very irregularly, and thankfully there's some other people that also try to squash them somehow. Yeah, I don't know. For the most part, to be honest, I just ignore it. That's my way to deal with it, because last time, so I click on the mark everything as read on GitHub about once a week, and this every time clears about 1,000 things out. And it's just, I can't deal with it, so I just ignore it. And then sometimes I fix some things if they are relevant for what my problem is, and then if people complain too much, then I will do something about it. There's way too much stuff. And I was actually very close to making a bot which closes issues just every 7 days. And then if people don't keep bumping them, they just close. I know it's not relevant. Maybe 7 days is too much, but I was thinking at least, like with every release, I just close all the bugs, and if people think they're still relevant, they can reopen them. That would be one way.
Like an opposite position, be transparent or put bot to just auto-close issues if they're not pumped enough.
also want to underline the fact your project should have a scope. Don't afraid to say no. Don't afraid to say it's out of scope of my project. Please create plugin. Please create another library. I don't want to include it into this particular project, and it helps very well. And yeah, also for some requests, I may answer. Sorry, I'll postpone it for later. Maybe it's useful, but I don't have this feeling. And let's return to discussion later after several similar feature requests. And it works.
Yes, and about feature request, regardless of how narrow your scope is, there are always people who will just request, we will write something, walls of text, more walls of text, and there will be communication problems. Because our brain, of course, it's amazing computer, but it have limited communication capabilities. And for example, if communicating with people from another country, from another background, even in our technical background, situations will arise when you simply can't understand each other. Of course, as open source project lead, you can close the issue, like won't fix, can't understand, but maybe there are some other tricks we can utilize in order to communicate better with our users. Any communication tricks?
Please make a pull request.
Yes, it is a standard answer, but what can we do better? For example, it's common idea to ask people questions. So in case some issue is unclear, some ticket is unclear, instead of closing it, instead of dumping it, just ask users simple questions like, okay, this feature looks strange. Can you please show some use cases and some of users who needs this feature? What do you think about asking users for more information in order to engage them in the development process? Will it make a good work, or just increase the amount of tickets flat?
Well, if you have a question, you just ask it. I'm not sure what to discuss here. So if
No, because you see, if you have 100 of issues, you don't want to ask questions. You want to just close, won't fix. But it's assumed to be a good idea to engage in the communications with your users.
So while you were talking, I just had an idea for such a problem. And you know how there's this requirement sometimes to provide ticket information in a certain format, sometimes asking for specific things just to make sure you get some of these details before they submit. I was just thinking you could create a bot that reads the ticket automatically, and then if it's not fitting that format, automatically responding with, fix the format of your ticket request. Otherwise, it'll be closed in 7 days.
Yes, all of this GitHub automation is really amazing, and latest psychology study shows that we humans like to communicate even if the person who communicates with us is not really a person, but some software program. We will be much better in handling situation if we have some kind of conversation. That's how bots are very popular right now. So, colleagues, we have 10 minutes, one more tricky issue to discuss, and about handling a flood of tickets for open source project. Maybe you have some questions, suggestions, something to add, or something to spark our discussion. Please, you're welcome.
I run several open source projects, and what I find very useful is to cluster your incoming issues as soon as possible, because lots of users have very similar problems that are actually the same problem, but they speak about it differently and they have some different settings, and it's often very useful to cluster them as early as possible when users are ready, and to provide the information about their problems when the issue is actual for them, rather than wait until you are ready to fix it. That's just a comment.
There are also services like, for example, user voice to prioritize and vote for issues. We have free maintainers of good open source project. Does any of you have experience with working with sites like user voice to vote for specific features? Please.
So it's not user voice, but a couple of years ago I had a thing called Flask Feedback, which was a website where you had a smiley and a frowny face, and you can press on it whenever you felt an emotion and then write a little text. That turned out to be absolutely useless because people only ever press the frowny face, and it's basically just a secondary bug tracker. And to be honest, I feel like the moment I invest a little bit too much thought into my open source project, it feels like work. And then the quality of my own contributions and my personal emotions to the project just fall flat to the ground. And I don't think it actually helps. So I try to keep the users away, to be honest, for the most part. It gets really... I talked to a bunch of people who are doing open source a lot more sort of user-facing, I guess. And from almost all I've heard is that the more you involve the sort of community thing, the more it sort of drains you, and the more it gets... Like, it feels like work, and it kind of destroys sort of the enjoyment out of it. So I try to, like, I have a lot of open source projects, and as a result, if I would invest more time into them, it would just destroy me as a person. So that's why I try to stay clear from user feedback as much as possible. It's really hard to just deal with all of this, especially because there's a certain type of user who sends personal emails, and that type of user wants support from you in email. If something doesn't work, they will use swear words, and they feel a certain sort of requirement to get a result from you. And I just can't deal with this, and it just gets auto-deleted, or not auto, but it's just delete key and doesn't get a response. Because otherwise it's just, yeah, I can't deal with it. I'm not being paid for that. And yeah, I think more people should realize that they don't have an obligation to do open source. They should stop doing it when it gets...
This leads to, you want to add something?
Yes.
Please.
So I've had users like that, and I've always pushed them to the email list when I can't handle them. I've also think that you can't not engage your users at some point. And I think there becomes a problem with, if you're not able to engage your users, then do you have enough maintainers on the project? Because your users are going to give you feedback on things that you don't see.
Yeah, I want to add something to this, which is the question about maintainers, because I'm sort of the person who has very few on my projects. And the reason for this is that I use my project myself. And nothing makes me as angry as seeing that the project goes somewhere where I don't want it. I much rather see people actually forking off my projects. So if I would prefer this as a general model, I think, for what I do, is that instead of me adding more maintainers and then having to overlook them, because I do feel a very strong attachment to my own projects. I use them myself. I don't want them to, I basically don't want to go in and have, I didn't want that. So I think there are different ways in which you can look at the project. One of them is that you have a very strong ownership of it and you keep the scope small and you just say like no to things. And the other one is that you involve more people and you let them like take the project into new directions. I think this is two different ways to look at this. Both of them are equally valid. But you have to be okay with it yourself, I guess.
And this leads us to last question we want to discuss today. If you feel emotionally and attached to your projects, but you do not have time to handle them, what is a good way for open source, for yourself to continue? Do you need to somehow to search for maintainers and how to search for them? Do you need to delegate entire project management to them? And opposite side, if you have some open source project that you really like and you see that no one maintains it anymore, what is a good way to ask current maintainer to join the force? Please.
There's the default of saying this is no longer supported or looking for a new maintainer and putting that out there just so people know that you're open to that. Secondly, I would look at the people who've made pull requests. I'd talk to people at conferences who are interested in your field, people who are using your library, and reach out to them so they know that it's no longer going to be supported. And ultimately, though, you have to consider self-preservation. If you don't have the time to be able to do it and you can't commit to it, you're just going to be killing yourself in worrying about it and trying to maintain your work and your library and your life and all this other stuff. You can only do so much. And as long as you're transparent about the direction and leave that door open, I think that's the best way.
Transparency is really a key. So if you start an open source project, it's a really good idea to put rules from the beginning and to search for maintainers and persons who will help from the beginning. And the really good place to search for them is the flood of tickets, because each person who have time and will to file a ticket, maybe he can become an maintainer. Just ask him, like, okay, this bug, pretty impressive, maybe you can fix it and create a pull request. By the way, guys, what is your experience with Absolute dropped the open source project that don't have any maintainers and not maintain it anymore? Maybe you have such project, maybe you used such projects and can share something. Just don't use them. Create from scratch. Please.
So I know I know all of you want to contribute back to open source, and I know you're really excited about doing it. One of the ways is actually to look at which libraries have not been upgraded to Python 3 yet, and do that. And that's a great way also to possibly become a maintainer of that library, because then you've actually went through the source code and you can become a core contributor.
Yep, and maintaining an open source project gives you an experience. I doesn't have such experience myself because I doesn't have any open source projects, but I'm looking forward into having such experience and my company. So we're closing quarter. We just hit our time counter. Thank you a lot for participating in this discussion. We can highlight that open source is very important for companies to both spend less money, to make more money for marketing, for receiving user feedback, but you need to be prepared that successful open source project will require time, will require documentation, will require some persons, maybe you or anyone from your company, to maintain it. And in some year, you will become tired of maintaining this project. So search early for maintainers, try to attract maintainers, and the flood of issues is really good place to search for future maintainers for open source projects. And of course, keep the doors open. That's all. Thank you, guys.